welcome to Digital Church. This is such a crazy time, and we all can say that. So, this morning, thank you for taking, or whatever time of day, it's YouTube. You can watch whenever you want. But thanks for taking some time to kind of come back and remember that things weren't always this way, and they won't always be that way. So, my name is Allie Horman. I am part of Last City Church, and I'm here this morning to share really something that has been on my mind and on my heart, and then all of a sudden all the books I started reading were talking about it. So I feel like maybe that's a sign. And the first thing that we're going to do this morning is take a breath, and we're going to bring ourselves to where God is, and some really exciting things that I'm learning about really where God is in all of this. The Hebrew name for God is Yahweh, which there are no vowels. Can I buy a vowel? No, you can't. In Hebrew, you can't, because there are none. And the word Yahweh then is spelled Yod, He, Vav, He. YHWH. And all of these letters in the Hebrew alphabet really don't have much of a sound other than a breathing. And that's not by accident. That is on purpose to remind us that God not only gives breath, but is in the breaths that we take. I would encourage you not to skip this part, or check something on your phone during this, or run and grab more coffee, but simply to be here for about 30 seconds, maybe not even that much. Because if there's anything that any of us need to do right now, it's catch our breath. So take a big breath. God, would you be present with us in our very breathing right now for the next few minutes, for the next day, and help us remember what it is to be present here with you. Amen. It is so hard to be present right now. I mean, everyone wants to be like, oh, we're present and not perfect, and we're supposed to be in the moment. But the thing is right now is relentless. When someone asks you to be present and you think about it, it's really exhausting. It's exhausting without a pandemic. And we all want to be present in our lives. But right now, present is so full that it feels like the weight of the world is sitting on our shoulders when we sit in the present. And I think it's important for us as people, and us especially as the church, to recognize that weight as real, as legitimate, and realize that in that weight, God is there too. Recently, I've been reading a really incredible book by a local author and pastor and friend of mine, Steve Weins, Shining Like the Sun, 7 Mindful Practices for Rekindling Your Faith. And I don't know if there has ever been a more timely or apt book, because the idea of being mindful right now is is everywhere and also really, really, really hard. I was lucky enough to get an advanced copy, but you can order it on Amazon, local bookstores, see who's got it, and we'll link the link down below. The idea of mindfulness sometimes seems a little new agey or woo-woo or whatever, but the truth is, we use the idea of being mindful every day. Being mindful of others, being mindful of your words, being mindful of who's around. Right now, we're very mindful of the distance we keep from people, not touching our face, which I've done a bad job of, even in this video. It's a hard one. You're mindful of how often you wash your hands and all of these kinds of things. So asking us to be mindful of where we are right now and being honest about it and our present circumstance isn't out of the question. It is the question. How do we find God where we are in the middle of an actual pandemic? Like some sort of dystopian novel or movie. Movies are good too. How do we find the Prince of Peace in the middle of a reign of confusion? The best part is you don't actually have to look far or hard because God is already here. In this book, Steve talks about that the Hebrew word for place is the word hamakom, which roughly translated means where you stand or where you remain. Let me read this little portion from the book. Hamakom stems from the root word kum, which means to stand. A place where you stand or where you remain. In rabbinic literature, it is assumed that God is not only the transcendent master of the universe, but also immanently present, but also the immanently present ground upon which one stands in each and every moment. In fact, God is often referred to as hamakom. It turns out mindfulness is baked into one of the very names for God. What if where you stand and where you sit and where you remain is exactly where God is? And taking a moment to be mindful is a moment you can recognize God's presence in your chaos and in your worries and in the constant updates, and perhaps He has enough for right now. The other thing about mindfulness and the presence is it forces us to admit all our worries cannot change the place where we remain. That idea of the word remaining right now, like to remain in place, is a frightening concept that we're hearing snippets about, press conferences, what do we do? And I think it's also a chance to remember that God remains where we remain. Matthew chapters 5 through 6 is the famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' first major collection of teachings after calling his disciples. It includes the Beatitudes, the Lord's Prayer, and a big section on the kingdom of heaven. Then Jesus includes a well-known portion on not worrying, and it will be read for you by one of the most carefree people I know.
If you decide God, living a life of God worship, it follows that you don't fuss about what's on the table at meal times or whether your clothes in the closet are fashioned. They are far more to your life than the food you put in your stomach, more to the outer appearance than the clothes you hang on your body. Look at the birds, free and unfrighted. They're not tired, down to a job description, careless, in the care of God. And you can count far more to him than birds. Has anyone fussing in the mirror they've or ever gotten taller one by so much as an inch? All this time money wasted on fashion, don't you think makes that much difference? Instead of looking at the fashions, walk out into the fields, look at the wildflowers, then never primp or shop and have been seen colorful and quite down like this. The best dressed men and women in the country look shabby like alongside them. If God gets such attention to the appearance of wildflowers, most of which are never even seen, don't you think he added to you, take the pride in you, do his best for you? What I'm trying to do here is get you to relax. I'm not being to be so not to be so preoccupied with getting so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way he works fuss over all these things, but you know both God and how he works to step in your life in God reality, God in God provisions. Don't worry about missing it. You'll find all your everybody human concerns will be met. Give your attention to what God is doing right now. Don't get worked up. It may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things come upon you when the time comes.
So that was Matthew chapter 6, verses 23 through 29. And if you didn't catch that last part, give your entire attention to what God is doing right now. And don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal whatever hard things come up when the time comes. The reason Jesus has us pray for daily bread is not because he hates extra bread. It's because we need to remember right now is where we are. And right now is where the Holy Spirit is. Do we have to have common sense practices? Yes. Do we have to have preparations in place? Yes. Do we have to care about tomorrow? Yes. But we cannot worry about them. That's different. This isn't YOLO. This isn't you only live once, so we're going to do something stupid. This is you have a life now. Live it well. And getting caught up in the anxiety of everything is not well living. This isn't a call to be reckless. This is absolutely a call to be safe and in the safety. Remember that you are known and you are whole and you are cared for, and that this day, this moment is enough. So right now, if you're wondering where God is in all of this, take time alone or with the people in your home or your cat or your dog or your favorite houseplant. Mine is right there. And breathe deeply into the breath you were given and know that God is right there. I don't have answers for how we're going to get through this. I don't know how we're going to change in the next weeks and months. I do know we have the capacity for today. Last week, Noah offered up an idea of what we can do, and that list is still very important, and we will link it somewhere down there. As people who don't do well in the midst of pain and confusion, a list of what to do is often very helpful. So here's my list for the week, which is a little different. Number one, commit to a Sabbath from the news. There is a lie that has been around since the beginning of creation that says if you know more, you will have the capacity for more. This isn't a call for ignorance, but a reminder that you don't need the next update right now. You don't need the next horrible news story. That it is okay to be present where you are without the input of NPR or CNN or the BBC or the White House. Number two, allow yourself an escape. If that means a Netflix binge or a good book or some sort of creative pursuit, do it. Give your brain a break. When you give your brain a break from the relentless now, it's not irresponsible, it's necessary. It's literally so you don't overclock the only computer you've got. Number three, cry. Seriously, cry or shout or sing or like strum a guitar really hard or whatever it is that you need in order to breathe out the hurt. Because it is a time for grief. This is hard. So be present even in the hurt and cry. And FaceTime somebody and cry to them and don't apologize because we can't apologize for grief right now. We've all got it. So let's own it. Number 4. Number 4, breathe deeply. When all of this seems too much, which would be like every other second, breathe. And remember that the name of the one who created light and life and love lives in that breath that you're having. And the last one is to eat. Remember that your table is an extension of the one we share each week. So as often as you partake in daily bread, you remember the Lord's death until our hope as a resurrection people is made real. Grace and peace be with you in this time. May you have a week of breathing deeply and remembering that no one has ever added an hour to their life by worrying. And each day has enough worry of its own. If you need anything during this time, please don't hesitate to reach out. Email anyone here at Last City Church. Leave a comment down below on how we can pray for you. And I know that this seems strange, but we can make a digital world into a real community. And then when the time comes, we're all going to hug each other a lot, probably even you introverts. So until that hopeful and wonderful, glorious time comes, have an excellent week. Go in peace, love, and serve in whatever way is possible, and breathe deeply.